When I was 8 years old, I got kicked in the face by an adult and got knocked the hell down. Now don't worry, it's not abuse or anything like that. When I was around 8 years old, I first started going to Taekwondo and I absolutely hated it. Like, I don't know if y'all remember, but back in the day, there was like a thing called Minecraft Factions. It's like a server where you have different kingdoms and they went to war with each other and stuff like that. Well, I was like the king of one of those kingdoms, right? And I was at war with another faction. But the problem was that I had to go to Taekwondo lesson right when I was in the middle of my war. Like they were actually like in like my kingdom, right? And I remember like I was crying my ass off, dude. Like I remember that my mom was like shouting at me like, go to Taekwondo. But I was like, nah, I'm at war right now. Bro, it was really silly, I know. Like I even begged my opponent to like stop the war or pause the war, and like they gave me gold blocks in return, like because they knew that I was 8 years old, okay? So they had mercy. They really just had mercy for me. But even though I still had to go to Taekwondo because of my mom, because she knew that in the future I would thank her, because knowing how to fight and thus also knowing how to protect is one of the essence of being a man. But back in the day, I didn't know that. I was like an 8-year-old brat, bruh. So one day I went to the Taekwondo gym and we had to spar that day. And I don't know why it was like a ghetto ass gym, but the adults and like the little kids, they sparred in the same gym, in the same room. Like, bro, you're just asking for a recipe for disaster. And you know, I was just sparring with another kid and the people next to us were adults. Like, they were heavyweight adults. But you know, I didn't mind. I honestly didn't even notice because, you know, I was sparring with another kid, right? So all my eyes and all my focus was on that kid. But that was until I blinked my eye and opened my eye again. And all of a sudden, there's a foot going full force, boom! Into my face. The adult basically planted his foot after he kicked his opponent, and right at that moment I was behind him. So yeah, it got right to my face. Like, just keep in mind, when you kick your opponent, you can control the power of your kick because, you know, you're sparring, so you obviously do not need to go 100%, right? But when you plant your feet, you do not keep that in mind because, you know, you're not gonna think that there's a little random kids behind you, right? So he just went full force when planting his feet. But yeah, there I was. I remember the next scene in my memory that I was like in the toilet and I was rubbing my face with water, crying and looking in the mirror with a full red face. Like, bro, I'm gonna be honest, I side-eyed his ass after that, bro. Like, I know he felt fully guilty, 100%, but you know, at the time, bro, I didn't care, bro. I got kicked in the face by an adult. And honestly, really, I just got traumatized because of that. And because of that trauma, I learned two things. Number one, don't get behind an adult as a kid. But secondly, I unlocked a new fear. I never want to get kicked or punched in the face ever again. Now fast forward a whole lot of years later, literally last year, I started kickboxing because now I came to an age where I understood that I had to know how to fight because then I would be able to know how to protect my loved ones. So, you know, at the end of the day, my mom was right. I would be thankful for her if I just stick with Taekwondo. But anyway, but when I went to kickboxing, I was really tactical with it because they had a timetable where only on Sunday they would spar. So guess what? I just never went on Sunday to spar. But after a while, like around 6 months, when I kicked the pads and then when I learned my technique, I noticed that my kicks weren't that great. And I know this will sound very ironic, but I then decided to go to another Taekwondo gym where I wanted to learn how to kick better. It was a really nice gym and coach and people. It was a really good gym. And the best part is in the website, they also had a timetable where they also only sport on Friday. So guess what? I never went on Friday. The problem was that unlike the kickboxing gym that I'm in, the Taekwondo gym doesn't really hold themselves for the timetable. They just really spar whenever they want. And so one day I went to the Taekwondo gym and all of a sudden I hear that they were going to spar. And I wasn't prepared for that, but I also didn't have any gear. So I thought I was lucky and I didn't have to spar. Nope, I was wrong. They just gave me equipment from the back. And like, of course, they asked me if I was okay to spar. Like, they didn't just force me to spar or anything like that. But I didn't want to chicken out. So I said, yeah, of course. And so I wore my equipment and then I waited when I had to spar. And I remember I was so scared. Like, every time they called out new names to go on the mat, I was scared that it would be me. And I was so scared that I was like even sweating a bit because of the stress, and I just did burpees and push-ups to try to hide that sweat that I was just tired because of the burpees and stuff like that. Bro, my heart was beating, bro. But then I looked at the clock and I noticed that the lesson is almost over. So I thought, yes, I'm lucky. But I was wrong again. Like, the coach told me last minute, like, hey, now you're going to spar. And boy, oh my God, I still remember that feeling till this day. I was so scared. But I manned up and I said, okay, coach. And I went to the mat and I started sparring. And guess what? it wasn't even that bad. Like, don't get me wrong, I did weird ass kicks, but just the concept of sparring wasn't that bad anymore. I was in flow state, really. And at that moment, I finally conquered my fear. And now I'm not scared to spar anymore. Now fast forward today, and I really love sparring. Like, I love sparring so much that we even have like a little fight club with my friends that also do martial arts, where we like book like a room in the gym for like 2 hours, like every 2 weeks, where we basically just spar together and then learn from the mistakes and push each other to be the best of our abilities in sparring.
Fight back, nigga! Fight back, nigga! Fight back! Fight back!
Oh, no.
And now I also go on Sundays in my kickbox gym where they actually spar. And now finally, the goal that my mom actually had when she signed me up for Taekwondo, I now know how to fight and thus able to protect my loved ones. Now, what do I want y'all to get from this story? It's really just that you cannot let your fear hold you back from the things that you want to do or sometimes even need to do. Now, I understand if you are scared, especially if you have like a childhood trauma, that you try to avoid facing that fear as much as possible. Truly, I understand. I did the same thing. Like, let's say for instance, you never had loving parents, and because of that, you're scared to actually find a romantic relationship because you're scared that that woman is also not going to love you because your parents were supposed to be the ones that love you the most. And now you have like that fear that no one will actually love you that much. But because of that fear, you might hold yourself back from the most beautiful experience that you can ever imagine. And not even imagine, but just literally live. When I spar, I'm in flow state. Like, I'm fully focused on sparring and I don't have any thoughts in my head than to just focus on sparring. And that's an amazing feeling. And I could have never had that feeling if I never conquered my fear. Because I spar, I'm now way more confident that I can protect my loved ones. And I could have never had that confidence if I never conquered my fear. You can even maybe make a new habit out of it where you try to conquer your fear every week. But before you do that, be sure to check this last video where I talk about the #1 mistake people make when they're trying to stick to their habits. It will save you a lot of time. Thank you for watching. Muzaffer out.